Hi y'all! Welcome to another acrylic paint along with me, Carrie. Today we are painting this 12 by 12 pumpkin on a canvas. But as I always say, you're welcome to paint on any similar size and shape surface that's paintable. So you can be using paper that's good for acrylics or a wood panel that's primed, whatever you've got. And we're going to have a lot of fun using some transparent layers and then working our way up to more solid layers at the end. I had a change of heart with my background, so I decided to change that. And I added on a tutorial to show that. So you can do, whichever way you want. But this was a really fun, festive little pumpkin. I love these little squirrely, twirly doodads in there, and I love the highlights in the shadows there, and obviously the bright oranges. That was what I was really excited to do. So let's get started. Hi everyone. So we're doing this pumpkin today, and I've got my reference sketch here. I'm just going to quickly use a dark piece of chalk and cover the back. You really just need to cover where the lines are. And I have a tutorial, full-length tutorial on how to do this transfer. Okay, so lines are all covered in chalk, and then you decide where you want to place it. So we've got our pumpkin kind of snug up against this right bottom side. So I'll do the same with my canvas. You can, do it more like this and then just fill in the gaps if you like. But I think I want to make it, let's see, I might actually do that. Kind of want to make a little bit more pumpkin here. Okay, so we just need a little bit of tape to hold it down while we trace it in place. And I need a pencil. So you can use a mechanical pencil, ballpoint pencil, even a pen would work for this. And you don't have to be fussy about it. We're just going to trace the lines. The only thing that's tricky about this is forgetting some of the lines sometimes, because it's hard to see what you've done. So you can just peel it back and check before you rip it off altogether. Now I'm not being fussy, I'm just doing a very loose translation because we are painting this after all, so don't get too hung up on the details. You just want to get the general shapes in. Now I think I've got it all, so instead of just ripping it off, I'm just going to peel it back, hold it down in case I need to do anything else. That looks pretty good. It might be hard to see on the screen, but it looks pretty good to me. Maybe press a little harder in spots. Yeah, okay, that'll work. So I just rip that off. You might have a little bit of extra powder on there. You can blow it off if there's like a lot going on, but we're going to paint everything, so wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, so I've also got my palette loaded up here, and I like to put my white in the center, but you can use any palette. If you just have like styrofoam plates, use that, whatever you've got at home. I just like to set it up so that I've got yellow, red, blue, sort of in a triangle shape. I use leftover paint. There's a tutorial on that as well. So I've been saving paint at the end of each session, and I just scoop it into this jar, and it gives me a really cool gray shade that works well in most paintings. I'll show you how to mix that if you don't have that. And yeah, that's it for my palette. Got the usual stuff here, a glass of water to mix, to clean our brushes. I'm starting with some fresh brushes today. Ooh, pretty. So again, I always recommend you use what you have at home, and you do not need to have exactly the same supplies as I do. So what I've got here is a large brush. This is a filbert rounded edge, a medium-sized brush, which is angled, not necessary at all. I just like using them. And then a round small brush for details. So even if you just had one large and one small brush, that would probably be fine. And it doesn't have to be angled like that. It can be filbert, rounded, it can be flat, anything that works. Even these two would probably work. It just depends on your personality and how you like to paint. So yeah, that's what I'll be using. Got my paper towel, and I'm good to go. Okay, so let's start with our outline here. So I like to use a bigger brush wherever possible. So I'll probably use this one. You can also use a small round if you like. What I like to do with my outline is I mix some red. I'm going to say 2 parts red, so 2 scoops, and then 1 scoop of blue. Swirl. Okay. And then I just outline everything that I've drawn in here. And you may find it tricky with this big brush, and I may even switch too. I'm not sure yet. Also, you can add water to thin your paint down. At the early stages, it's helpful. Now I have to kind of make up the lines where the pumpkin went off the page. There we go. And then I don't want to lose the stem here, so let's get that in there. I'll show you the difference between brushes, just so you can see. And when I change brushes, I do like to clean them in between. That's a really important step, so that you don't get muddy colors, is to clean your brushes in between colors. So I'll show you what this little round guy does. He's so new, he's still got the glue holding him together. Okay. A little bit of water in there. So you can see that gives you a little bit more control using the small brushes, but I do try to use a big brush when possible, because getting too detailed is not always a good thing. Okay, now I'm sort of hard to see what I did here, so I have my sketch off to the side, and I'll reference that for these little squiggly bits here. And you don't need to use the sketch either. If you want to just freehand it as I paint it here, that's perfectly fine too. I really like these little squiggly lines in the pumpkin stem. So I'm just going to kind of wing this here. Woo. And that's the good thing about painting and art in general, is that we don't have to be, nothing has to be exactly precise. It's just what you want it to be. So use it as a starting point, the sketch, and don't worry about it being just like mine, because mine's not even just like mine either, so not to worry. Got a couple lines in here. I think that's about it. Now the other thing I like to do with my paint at this point, I'll rinse this out because I'm not going to use it anymore, or not for a little while. I like to put the darks in at this stage. So there's some dark in the background here, so I'll jump to, I got names for my brushes. This is Papa Bear brush because he's the big brush. And I just dipped it in a little bit of water there. And I'm going to darken kind of this back side here and then fade it up as we get up to the top. So we'll start nice and dark down here. Now you have to be careful with thinning your paints too much because it can start to break down the paint and it's not good in the long run, but a little bit of water is okay. And we might need to mix some more too. My pet peeve is white of the canvas showing through on paintings. So I am just trying to cover those up. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more. So I'm going to take a scoop of red, a nice big scoop here. And then I'll do again like half that size roughly of blue. Mix them up. And then I'll just carry on around this stem here. Now it's not as dark, so it looks like, based on my photo here, that the shadow of the pumpkin is creating most of this darkness, and then the stem kind of comes up. So let's give it some shape to the pumpkin there. The stem, and then there's some other stuff happening. Oh, I forgot my leaf. That's what I forgot. There we go. There's a little leaf that comes out of this stem here. Okay, and then the rest of it we're just going to kind of make up here. So there's some soil and there's some like dark spots in the soil. So honestly, it doesn't really matter how you do it. Just going to add like a few little spots of dark over here. Maybe some here. One thing I like to do when I create a painting is kind of create like a vignette. So like a shadowed effect near the outside edges. It kind of naturally draws your eye inwards. So I like to do dark on the outside edges. So we can do that. Just a little bit here. Okay, I think that's probably enough for shadows. You know what? While we're at it, let's do a little bit on the pumpkin too. Now we don't want it to be as dark as this. So what I'll do is I'll take my brush, dunk it in water, and I might just use this empty spot here and thin it down. And then we're just gonna create a lighter shade and shadow these little bumps in the pumpkin here. So it's mostly around the outside edge. Our light source is coming from top right here. So shadows are going to be bottom left. Something you want to think about. And they kind of hug this like segment here of the pumpkin. There's going to be a shadow for the stem. So that kind of comes out here. And then some for these squiggly lines down here. That doesn't have to be really accurate. And just wherever there's a bump, there's going to be like this little bit of a line in here. Okay. And a little bit more paint. Okay, so this is just giving us a guide when we go in with our color. And again, I might just create that vignette over here too. Okay, that's pretty good. Alright, so I will clean my brush now. And what I like to do is just pounce it down to the bottom of the glass. And then I just kind of wring off the extra water and then pat it dry on my paper towel. Okay. So let's get into some colors, because this is the exciting part here. We've got a beautiful orange pumpkin, some nice green in the vine, and then some browns, which we'll probably add some purples to in the dirt. So I think I want to start, let's see, where do we want to start? I think I'll start with the orange pumpkin, because that's the main feature. And once we get that, we can figure out the rest of the colors. So I'm going to take, I've left lots of space in here to mix oranges. So let's start with the mid-tone here, and then we'll do a light and a dark. So a good scoop of yellow. Let's do 2 scoops of yellow, and then we'll take 1 of red. Red's going to be a lot stronger than yellow, so you just have to be careful about the red and see how strong your red is, because all brands of paint are different. And that's not bad. That's pretty good for my mid-tone, I think. Yeah, I like that. And then we'll create a dark shade as well, and a light shade. So what we can do, I think I'll want to keep as much of that paint as possible. So let me just take some of that extra there. Okay, we'll take another scoop of yellow. And even with what's just left in my brush, that might just work to swirl around. Yeah, that'll work well. Little tip there. And maybe a touch more yellow. Just want to make sure I have enough paint. And then we'll get into adding white as well. Now I know my paints are very transparent, so this may not show up on my dark, so I'll have to do this first while I paint it. Okay, and then we'll do a dark shade as well while we're doing this. Now I want to rinse my brush out at this point because I don't want to make the dark shade mixed up with this light here. Okay, so in this case, we'll take a smaller amount of yellow. We're basically going to have orange and then darken it. So there's lots of ways you can do that. You can either take a scoop of this and put it over there. I want to use most of this, so I'll just make a new orange here. And I know it's going to be darker, so I'm not worried about going heavy on the red. So I've got lots more red than I did yellow, and that's okay. And then I can just simply take some of my purple that I've got here, or blue, to darken it. Now, I don't know how dark I want to go, so I'm just going to be careful and mix it in slowly. I want it to be noticeably darker than my mid-tone color. So I'll just kind of keep gradually adding in the darks here. That's pretty good color. Okay, I like that. Okay, I think that's a good amount of colors to start with. So let's say we start with our light. So I'll rinse out my brush. So an important thing to know about acrylic paints, especially student grade, is they're very transparent. The only paint on my palette that's opaque is white. So that means if I paint something dark, right, and I go over top of it with my light yellow here, it's not going to show up because it's very transparent. So knowing that, I'm going to start with my light colors here and then work to my dark so that my canvas is going to create a nice background. That white of the canvas is going to let this color show really nicely. So I'm just going to fill all these light spots in with this light color orange. And don't worry if they start to smudge. It all adds to the painterly effect. And it's actually kind of nice when they're transparent and you start to go into the dark colors, the purples and that. It sort of creates another tone, which is nice. And I'm just going to go everywhere that there's white, basically. I might have to mix a little bit more here. So I'll do that before I run out. So there was 2 parts yellow to about 1 part, actually a lot less than that. That was for that one. Ignore me. Lots of yellow and a tiny bit of red. And if you don't mix the exact same color, don't worry. It's okay. They're a little different and that's okay. I like to call that a happy accident. You may not know it at the time, but it's probably going to be a good thing. So try not to stress. Painting should be fun. And it's always something that is, you're always kind of reacting to things. Like you might call it a mistake, but I'm just going to say happy accident because that's a lot nicer sounding. And then you don't beat yourself up and get upset because it can destroy the process if you get too, worried about everything throughout the process. And you know what? It looks pretty good. So that's why I like to embrace these things. Okay. That's nice for the light colors. Now I think I'll go to the next shade. So this is my mid-tone orange, and I'll just start filling in some of these darker spots. And then eventually we'll get to the really dark stuff. So this is kind of the middle tone. So I won't go all the way to the edge because I do want to leave some for my really darks. And what we can do with this one is just work on blending the 2 colors, the light and the mid-tone. And it's nice to paint real fast because then you can just blend it right on the canvas here, which gives some really nice results. It's going to be a little dark under these twirly vines. And you don't want to over brush either, because, excuse me, if you start really smudging it out, then you lose those dark lines, right? So I'm going to try to resist the urge to overbrush. That's a hard thing to do. Okay, and then I'll leave the darks down here for my really dark shade. Just get a bit more in there. And I can always go back and kind of, you know, add lighter if I need to. Okay, so we'll go straight into the dark here. And that's gonna really pop it out. And I'm using the big Papa Bear brush here for all this. But again, you use what's comfortable for you. So if it's the, you know, smaller medium brush, then that's fine. I might go in and darken my lines because I kind of lost them a little bit here in spots. I'm really liking this effect we're getting with the transparency. Now I might have to build this up a little bit down here because it's very wet, so I might want to darken it a little bit more, but it's just too wet to do that. So I'll just let it dry down there, and I'll carry on up here with some of my shadows. And I'm just emphasizing these darks a little bit more. Painting's a very intuitive thing, so I know at the beginning, you know, you want to follow very closely, but kind of let yourself do what you think is right. You know, trust yourself. Okay, so it's all nice. It's pretty wet in here, so I'm going to let these layers dry, and I think we'll work on the background. But so far, it's really taking shape, so I'm happy with that. Okay, let's rinse our brush out. Now, let's do the green stem, and I think I will switch to my medium-sized brush for this. Now for the green, it's a very bright green, so I'm going to take some yellow. Actually, I'll say 2 scoops of yellow, and then blue is very strong, so I'm just going to dip the brush in like a little corner here, maybe even a little less. Okay, you can always add more, but you can't take it out. You just end up having to add lots more yellow, which is kind of a waste. So just be careful with the blue because it's super strong. Okay, I like that green. That's pretty good. And then I'm just going to add that to my stem. This thick part here. And again, not to worry, I've got some smudging happening, but that's actually kind of nice. Embrace those, what we call accidents. They're really not. That's just the magic of paint. Okay, I've created a funky shadow there without even trying. That's pretty cool. Okay, so there's a little bit of green in the leaf as well. Here we go. All right. Looking good. Now, let's see, we can probably add our highlights and shadows to this green stem. So I love this saved paint because it works really well for shadows and additional kind of colors. So I'll show you how to make it in case you don't have it already. But basically it's like a gray green. So I would start with some white. I'm just going to use this spot here. Okay, so some white, some blue, tiny bit of blue, and I've got yellow in there already, so let me give that a swirl. And it's got all the colors in it, so we do need a little bit of red in there, and it's much darker than this color, so let's go in with some more blue. Some more red. And we're getting close. That could work for you. It's a touch more blue, I think. And some red. There. That's pretty close to what we had. Okay, so what we're going to do with this color is use it as a nice little shadow to our stem. And when we're doing highlights and shadows, you just want to think about the shape of the object. And it's kind of around, this is like a tube, so there's, on the edges it's going to have a little bit of shadow. Our stem is going to have the same thing. And if the light's coming from this way, the shadow's going to come from this way. So I'll focus on the bottom. But shadows are deceiving because they're kind of a little bit on that side as well, just not as much. There's going to be quite a bit in this leaf. It's kind of folded over, so the top of it is mostly shadow. You can use this on the purple too, the outline. And this is a good color to do our little squirrely doodaddy guys over here. Don't want to lose them in this whole thing, so I think I'll put them in now. Oh, and definitely, you know, this is a good time to use this little guy here. So I'll throw that there for a sec. And I'm not being very precise because that's just not my style. Okay, you can use this in the leaf to add like little veins, but I try not to get too bogged down by those details, so I'll leave it at that. Now you don't want to leave your brushes in your water for a long period of time, or even more than like a minute or so, but just best to kind of rinse them out and pull them out when you can. Okay, so now we'll get to the background, which is mostly dirt, and dirt can get muddy. So my tip for that is to add a little purple. Okay, so there's some light spots and some dark spots. So I'm going to create a black for the dark spots. Now you might have to bring out your second palette for this one because we're filling up this one here. So I'll bring that out. I think I'm good for paint. If you need to fill up on paint, do that. Yeah, I'm going to show you my color guide because I will be attaching that to all the videos. So I want to show you that. 1 second. Okay, so this is a handy dandy little cheat sheet I created, and there's a file attached to the tutorial in how to create the color guide. So you can access this and print it off and just have it by your side. So what it does is it easily breaks down the basic colors here that we can mix and how to get them. Now this is based on my acrylic paints, so it may need a little bit of tweaking, but it's a good general guideline here. So I want to do a really dark color for the soil, which is basically black. So that's going to be 2 scoops of red, 1 scoop of yellow, and 1 scoop of blue. And then you can see how you can lighten it. You can't really darken it because it's black, but then for all the other colors, the same model applies. So these are the scoops of primary colors, and then this is what happens when you add white and when you darken it with what we make black. I choose not to buy black paint because I don't like the way that it is so harsh compared to my other colors, so I always prefer to mix my own color. Now again, that's personal choice. You do you, whatever makes sense for you, but just my preference there. Let's see, I think I'll go to Mama Bear brush is our medium-sized brush for this. So based on my color guide, I'm going to take 2 scoops. Let me get a little bit more red in here. Probably need some yellow too. Oh, and if you're working with paints in this kind of bottle, you'll want to make sure you put the lid back on. It's always best to keep your paint airtight. It's going to save it in the long run. Okay, so 2 scoops of red. 1 scoop of yellow and 1 scoop of blue. So I'll take my blue, and what I should do is actually start with my light colors and work dark. That way I don't have to clean my brush. Now my brush is really dirty. I'm not going to go in to the yellow with this. You'll notice I don't clean it in between all colors, as long as I know it's not going to contaminate it. But this yellow is really light compared to the others, so you can kind of go, you know, light to dark is best. 1 scoop of yellow. Okay, so now with my yellow, I could go into my red, right? Because I know that red is much stronger than yellow. You can be real crazy and rinse every time, you know. I can't be bothered, so I'm not going to. Okay, now this is where you might have to tweak it. So even from my own guide, right, it's a little bit on the brown side, which is okay because I'm never going to get true black here with the primaries, but I'll get close. I know I can get a little closer, so I'm just going to take a little bit more blue to darken that up. And then it's sometimes hard to see it, but if you take a little bit of it off to the side, you can kind of see, and that is much nicer dark color for me. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that everywhere that I have my purple in here. It's going to be a dark shade. And this will have a few layers, so you don't have to worry about brush strokes or anything really right now. The only thing I like to do is typically paint with what I'm doing. So this soil is going to be all over the place. These are shadows of the vine, so I'll paint with the shape there. And then for the rest of it, it's kind of like all crisscrossy up here. So that's how I'll paint it. Just all sort of different directions. All right. Now we're going to want to create a lighter shade of this. So what we can do is take our black and scoop a little bit in here. All right. Now my brush is pretty dirty, so I'm going to scrape off as much of it as I can and then clean it. Don't want to waste paint by just dunking it into the water without scraping it off your brush too much. So now with a nice clean brush, I'm going to use some white to lighten this dark shade up here. And it's a little bit too gray, so I'm going to add a bit more color to it. Okay, so I'll take some yellow, tiny bit of red. Let's just try that for now. That's not bad. It's almost a little close to my orange, so I may do a little bit of blue just to make sure we know the difference there. Okay, I think that'll work well for the light color of the dirt. So I'm just going to brush that in here, anywhere where there's white canvas. Now when you meet the dark stuff here, we have a couple things we can do. If the shadow's really harsh, we can just make a harsh line. If the shadows are a little bit softer, we can blend the two together more. So I'll go through here and decide. I think this line will be pretty sharp because it's very close, and these will be a little softer up here. That's another thing I like about this angled brush is you can get into small spots here by using the tip of it. So I've kind of become partial to these angled brushes. You could do the same with a flat, just a little bit trickier. And all brushes you can use, obviously you can, use them this way or you can use them this way. So you can really get a variety of sizes just with one brush. Sizes of brush strokes, I should say. And what's nice too, again, when it's wet and you're working pretty fast, is that you can blend right onto the canvas here. So I'm just going to take advantage of that wet paint and blend it in. You can soften the edges a little bit on here. Your selection of brushes really is kind of a reflection of your personality too. So you know, you might prefer the rounded filbert brushes to be softer if that's kind of your thing, and you might prefer the straight edge flats or angles if, you know, you're a little bit more, what's the word? Opposite to soft. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. It might be a more modern look. Let's say that. Sometimes you want a softer look. So it just depends on your personality and what you're painting. I like to use a combination of both. I think they all have places. Okay, that's coming along nicely. Now I might just blend out a little bit of this too. And I'm just kind of taking the harshness away from the edges on that. I'd like to cover any white spots too. I don't like the white canvas showing through my paintings. And then just kind of fill in any spots you like. Okay, that's looking good. Now what we do want to do, shadows do have highlights. So while we're working on this, let's do this part down here. And I want to add some purples in here to create a little bit more interest. So I might just take what I've got here in my purple section and add some white to that. That might be a little light, but this is a good color, so let's use it. Now, what's happening up here is just like a bunch of dirt and twigs and stuff, so I'm going to be real abstract in here, and I like just doing quick brush strokes that I don't, you know, fuss over. Can have some over here. And dots are great too, especially with this kind of a soil in here. Okay, that's nice. Now, I'll do a darker version for down here. So let's take our purple and just mix it into whatever you've got left here. So like a little bit less of this light color. Now sometimes you just have to brush it in and see what it looks like. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, so that's not bad. If you want to darken it, you just want to add a little bit more purple. So I've got two colors there. Yeah, that's gonna work too. Okay, so what I like to do is just kind of touch on the darks. Not everywhere, but just like to give everything a little bit of interest, right? And I might throw it up here too. All right. And then some of that light stuff, lighter shade will work well down here. I might keep the dark, the bottom dark, and then the light, the top can be lighter up here. Okay, that's nice. And now what you can also do, purples make a great shadow. So we can throw this purple, this darker purple, into the pumpkin as a shadow, and it can be around all these squiggly lines here too. A little trickier to show that. I might throw a little bit down here too. It's great to use the complementary color as a shadow. So when we have yellow, purple is complementary. So there's some yellow and some orange in here. So you can do yellow, orange and blue. But I like yellow purples, orange purple, just like purple as a shadow, really. I don't want to cover all my colors because I like what we did in here with the darks. But this is just going to pop it up a little and make it a little bit more interesting. So I'll just dabble it kind of everywhere I've got darks. Okay. Now, I do feel like we still need to do some lights in our pumpkin here. And this is not quite finished for me. So let's finish up the soil. I think it needs a bit more of a warm color. So I'm just going to add some yellow to this light shade that we had and some red. And I'm just going to dabble that in. Because of all the oranges here, I felt like we needed a little bit more orange over here too. And we're mostly working with just transparent layers in here. So there could be a little bit of white added to this. And that'll make this stand out nicely. Now, it depends how much white you use. I might go a little bit more. There. Yeah. And again, I'm just dabbling around with like dots and lines, and I'll focus more light up here and taper it off as I get down here because it's darker down here. You have fun with it. Make some swoopy lines, whatever you like. Okay, now that's pretty good. I'm happy with the soil. Maybe could use a little bit lighter stuff going on in here. Sometimes you gotta step away from the painting and come back with fresh eyes. It's hard to see everything. And just making a purple here, so red and blue and some white. Oop, need some more red. It's kind of gone blue on me there. That's the color I'm looking for. Okay, so I just want to punch this up a little bit in here. That's good. I tend to like to carry the colors throughout, so I'll just dab it around. This is a funky color, so I'm even going to use it. It can be kind of a highlight shadow, if that makes any sense at all. It's kind of acting like a highlight in these shadows. Okay, now that I could easily get carried away with, so I'll stop myself. And I want to get back to some light in the pumpkin and the stem, just to make sure they pop out from everything else that we've got going on here. So let's do the pumpkin first. So I will take some yellow, good scoop of yellow. I'm just gonna take some of this orange because I have it. If you don't, just take a little bit less red. And now we get to lighten. So take some white. Okay. And this is going to, make this pop out more. Now it's your choice on how much or little of this you want to add. Okay. It could just be the way it is. That's totally fine. You could just leave it, but I kind of want to pump it up a little bit here. Acrylic paint is very thin, and so layers tend to enhance it, I find. Okay, now I'm going to do another version that's just a little darker. So I'll just take some white and add it into this orange. And make sure it's darker than the last one. And then I'll just dabble that around here. I'm not covering everything. Like, I do really love these transparent layers we created, so I'm trying to be careful not to take that away. Just want to enhance it a little bit. And so painting with the shape of it, I'm just kind of curving it at the edges there. Oh, another tip I have is if it's very wet and you are having trouble with the paint sticking, first make sure you load your brush up well. Second, hold your brush parallel to your canvas. So not like this, but more like right like this. And then drag it, and that's really going to allow the paint to be pulled off without scraping it. Now I don't want it that heavy, so I'll just take a little bit back. But that's a good tip. If it's all really wet and you want to lay it down thick, that helps it lift it off your brush without scraping it. And it helps to hold it like you just picked it up off the table to do that. Okay, it's coming to life now. Really coming out. Okay, now let's do a little bit of the stem. I feel good about this guy. Now he's got a few more highlights. Let me take that back. Okay, we'll do the highlights and then we'll get to the stem. Now the highlights are really bright, so I will just take some yellow and some white, a lot of white. These are the really shiny spots here on the pumpkin. Okay, so again, take that technique we just did, right? Load up your brush, hold it like this, and just scrape where you need to lay down lots of paint. That might be it. Okay, I think we'll see. I'll play with that. This is a good color for the stem too, so let's use this in our stem. And our squiggles, we can't forget those. This might be the time for the little brush. Yeah. Still quite wet on here, so I'll be careful. Sometimes little dots are nice. I just find them, they help to break things up a little bit. So I do a lot of dots in my work. Okay, now I might just get a little bit more green in here. I want to create a focal point, so I don't want it all to be highlighted, so I might just take what you have left on your palette, and I might just take a bit of that out and darken it. Okay, this is a great color for the leaf too, so we can just add a little bit more interest here. I kind of like it in here as well. Now, it's tricky at this stage. I feel the tipping point of overworking, so I'm gonna try to not do that, but you know, when it's getting near the end, you get excited about the piece, and sometimes it's easy to go a little crazy. I'm adding a little bit of yellow to this and white. I just want to put a bit more of a highlight in my stem, or sorry, squigglies. Yeah, okay, I think she's done. Hi y'all. So I decided after looking at this painting for a little bit that I wanted to change something. So I'm just adding this tutorial in, but it's totally optional. If you want to keep your painting the way it is, it's fabulous. Go for it. I just found after looking at it for a while that this looked a little bit busy up here to me. So I'm going to do a white over top of it and just lighten it up and allow my pumpkin to stand out a little bit more. So I think I'm just gonna go in straight with white and then see if I need to add another layer over top. So I'm just using my big Papa Bear brush, and it's kind of just like a primer, really, like covering up my painting here. Now, see, I might show some of, I'll leave the dark, what's going on underneath here, but I just felt like it was a little bit too busy for my liking. So, this stuff happens, right? Like, we get in the groove and it seems good and it might feel good in that, but then later on, I thought, this could be better. So I'm gonna make it a little bit better, in my opinion. And it's all part of the process. So, you know, never feel discouraged. These are all good practice techniques that we're learning. So nothing's ever really wasted in painting. Sure, we can waste a little bit of paint, but we did some really cool brush strokes, so it's never really a waste. And already I'm seeing a lot more of this pumpkin and this orange that I really was attracted to in the first place. So sometimes it's just about having a little bit more foresight in the beginning. Sometimes I'm really good at picking out, you know, what I want the background to be, or sometimes it just accidentally it just falls into place. Colors just sometimes magically work out and sometimes they don't. But hey, it's all part of the learning process. So again, totally optional. Maybe you want to wait and see what it looks like, and then if you like it, you can do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's cool too. That's what I love about art. It's your choice. You're the decider here, so you do what you want to do. I'm loving this much better already. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more color here, just a white but an off-white shade, kind of like what's happening with some of the colors that are shining through. So I'll try to keep that. Let's see, don't want to do anything too crazy, so we'll just keep it fairly minimal. So perhaps just a tiny bit of yellow and like a really tiny bit. Just to tint it a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. And I might have to wait for this to dry, but let me just try. Okay, that seems to be working well. I need to mix up a little bit more, so I'll just add some more yellow to my white here. That's better. Yeah, that just softens it up a little from what the white was. Yeah, I like that. And it goes well with our orange pumpkin too. Okay, so I'm gonna need some more white. And some yellow. Now you might see my paint is a little bit chunky. This is not normally the case. I'm using up some old paint, and that's another good lesson, is that you want to keep your paints as airtight as possible. So I have these little containers, and when they're getting low, I start to fill them up again, because even air in the tube here is going to dry them out. So just something to be a little bit careful of. If you have a larger tube of paint to work from, you want to fill up your small bottles as you go so they don't get all dried out. And now we can have some fun with this paint too and start to add some thicker brush strokes. And that gives it some interest too. So even though it's just basically one shade of off-white, the nice brush strokes give it some interest. Okay, and I think I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think I need to do any other colors in here. I think we'll just leave it at this. Maybe just apply a few thick brush strokes and call it a day. Okay, now let me just take a look at it. I'm just gonna see here. Yep, I think that's better. I just noticed a little purple in there. That's kind of, I'm not sure if that's the background. I think that's my stem. So I might just fill that in a little bit more. So I'll take some yellow, tiny bit of blue, and I'll take a little bit of red just to desaturate that. Greens are very bright without a little bit of red, so touch of red and that just calms that color down nicely. Okay. There we go. I believe she's finished. Perhaps I jinxed myself. Maybe you should never say a painting is finished. Perhaps that's the problem. Okay, I'm much happier with this guy now. And if you like it, feel free to change this background up. And yeah, we'll see you in the next tutorial. Okay, thanks guys.